Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the CanesInSight podcast powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. New developments in the Miami, Wisconsin lawsuit. Miami has moved to dismiss Wisconsin's lawsuit. We'll explain what all that means. Pete's got a new edition of the work. Been doing some digging. He's got some stuff to talk about here as we prepare for the scrimmage tomorrow. Just a lot of stuff to get into with this team, man. But first, I want to talk about some folks who know a little bit about these kind of motions, and that is Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. Pete, get in there.
Good morning, D. Excited to hear your thoughts here on this Xavier Lucas situation. You've been pretty strong for months here that obviously Miami did nothing wrong, and we've kind of been talking through this Wisconsin lawsuit as people are trying to figure out what's going to happen with it. And as you mentioned in the beginning, there big development yesterday as our buddy Brett McMurphy is reporting that Miami is expected to file a lawsuit, or expected to file a motion to dismiss the Xavier Lucas lawsuit filed by Wisconsin. And again, as we understand, the lawsuit alleged Miami interfered with a binding rev sharing contract that's not legal yet, involving the Badgers and DB Xavier Lucas.
Yeah, and look, this motion to dismiss has been filed. So they were expected to do it when this was posted. It has since been filed. I have not seen, let me do my usual disclaimers. I have not seen the full motion to dismiss. This was filed in Wisconsin State Court. I have to go dig it up, but I have not seen it. I don't think it's been posted publicly that I've seen, but I wanted to just give my thoughts on what I do know. So, Pete, as I share my screen here, I will pull up what's publicly available on my end, which is basically like the first page or so. The introduction was posted. Here we go. Let's see. So here we go. You got the first couple pages, the introduction. And as someone who's written a million of these things, usually in your introduction, you are going to lay out really your arguments in summary form. So you're not going to have all the case law that you might rely on, some of the detail, but you're going to at least preview all the arguments you're going to make and the general theme and narrative of the motion. So if you're going to have a part of this and an incomplete part, this is what you want. But, as far as like projecting success and all that, there's a long way to go here. You got to read the full motion. You got to read the cases side. And then, of course, you got to see what comes back the other way. So I don't want to overstate what we're looking here. I just want to give you a feel for what Miami is arguing. So basics as far as what the motion to dismiss represents. I would call this like you're trying to get like a first round knockout here in layman's terms. So basically, you hear the term discovery a lot, right? That's something you hear. These guys want to avoid discovery or whatever it is. Discovery is the fact-finding part of the case where you're trying to find out what actually happened and obtain facts to ultimately help your case if you move for summary judgment down the road or if you ultimately go to trial. So that's like your depositions. When you see people sitting down and answering questions under oath, not in a courtroom, but like in a conference room or whatever, that's going to be typically your deposition. Then the paper discovery, the production of documents, maybe the answering of written questions. This is all part of the discovery fact-finding process. So the motion to dismiss is different than that because with the motion to dismiss, you have to accept everything that's being alleged as true. So you're saying, all right, Wisconsin, let's assume that everything you just said in your complaint is actually the fact. We're not saying it's the fact, but for the purposes of this motion to dismiss, we are accepting all of that as the fact. You still don't state a valid legal claim because for whatever legal reason, it fails, right? So it's a unique motion in terms of there's no facts, like there's no real facts involved. This is just accepting their facts as true and finding legal deficiencies in what they're saying. And if you succeed, you win right off the top. You either avoid discovery totally or maybe you cut it off really early and the case is done right off the bat. Sometimes a motion to dismiss might knock the case out without prejudice, and then the party who filed the complaint might refile to say certain magic words or to change the way that they put the case to get the complaint together to withstand a motion to dismiss. So it's not always a successful first round knockout. Sometimes it's just a first round knockdown and they're allowed to get up. So that's just kind of where we're at. It's a very early situation. What Miami is saying here, and they make a few arguments. One argument is about personal jurisdiction. Obviously, this is in Wisconsin State Court. So this is going to be the home court for Wisconsin. There's home field advantage, right? You don't want to be in state court, which is the home of your opponent. You'd rather be either in your own hometown or at least in federal court, which is a United States district court judge. So in this case, we're talking about state court. You want to get out of here. So what Miami is saying is that basically the Wisconsin State Court does not have personal jurisdiction over Miami as a defendant. Miami can't be hailed into court here for this claim. So it's a very legal, technical thing. Again, different than, hey, did they interfere with Xavier Lucas's NIL contract or not? It's just this is a specific legal issue. And what they're saying, it's twofold. Number one, they're saying we're not at home in Wisconsin, just for the kind of general personal jurisdiction. This is not our home turf. Therefore, you can't just call us in here because we're at home in Wisconsin like you would if it was in Florida state court, right? The Wisconsin court doesn't generally have personal jurisdiction over Miami because we're not at home here. It's not our state of incorporation. This isn't our principal place of business. This is not where we're at. Wisconsin's made some arguments that because Miami takes admissions from Wisconsin and does other things in Wisconsin, that they're subject to personal jurisdiction there. And Miami basically says, and they use the exact words, borderline frivolous, which is pretty strong language. I'm sure every lawyer in this chat has used that phrase a bunch of times. But use that when you think you have a pretty good argument. The other aspect would be specific specific jurisdiction. Appreciate you, Birdstone. Like and subscribe to the show. Shout out to the villains. Appreciate your support as always. One of the lawyers is saying 57105 sanction these guys for how frivolous it is. But Martin Quinn saying we need trial by combat, Mario versus Fickle. That'd be a good fight. So anyways, the other part is specific jurisdiction. Basically saying Miami did things in Wisconsin that led to the lawsuit, and therefore it's appropriate that Miami is subject to being hailed there to court in Wisconsin because Miami went into Wisconsin, did something that caused this whole problem. And what Miami is saying is, even if you take what Wisconsin's saying is true, all this happened when Xavier Lucas was in Florida. None of that happened when he was in Wisconsin. And the whole, the big claim, or one of the big claims in the Xavier Lucas lawsuit, was that a Miami staff member met with Xavier Lucas's family member. And Miami's saying, well, even if you take that as true, again, remember, there's a motion to dismiss. So you're accepting these allegations, which you think are false, as true. You're saying, even if you admit that that's true or accept that it's true, that would have happened in Florida, that meeting in Broward County. So that doesn't provide the basis for specific jurisdiction. Another claim by Wisconsin is basically look, we felt the effects of what you did in Wisconsin because we're in Wisconsin. We're going to run all Xavier Lucas's ads in Wisconsin, and we can't do it because of what you did. So the effects of your conduct were felt in Wisconsin. That allows us to bring you in here. And what Miami's saying is that that's kind of an outdated test. Since 2014, the Supreme Court said that you don't look at the effects on the plaintiff. You look at what the defendant is doing towards Wisconsin, like the state of Wisconsin, right? What are defendant's actions into the state? And in this case, Miami's saying basically there's none. So this sounds like legalese, technical stuff. This is what you see in a motion to dismiss. Miami's basically saying we don't belong in Wisconsin State Court. Get us out of here. You're just trying to get the home court advantage, and you aren't entitled to do so. So that's kind of the first part of this. The other part is more substantive, I think, which is Miami saying, look, forget the personal jurisdiction part of it. You are alleging that the University of Miami is interfering with Wisconsin's contract with Xavier Lucas, NIL contract. There was no contract. It was all contingent. It was a memorandum of understanding contingent on this settlement, which has since been approved, but at the time you didn't know it was going to be approved, right? And Xavier Lucas didn't intend to be bound by that MOU. It was just something he signed with the understanding that maybe something happens down the road. So therefore, even if we accept all this stuff as true, there was no contract. And therefore, we could not have tortiously interfered with the contract. So that's the other basis to dismiss, which is more substantive, because that doesn't just go to like what court you're in. That goes to the actual merits of the case in a way. Last argument that at least that I saw in the introduction. Again, I'm just going off the introduction, which is usually going to lay out all the arguments. Miami says that Wisconsin is basically asking the court for a declaration of whether the contract's legit, and stepping away from the lawsuit and what's written. The fact of the matter, the reason Wisconsin is doing this more than anything is to have that Big Ten revenue sharing contract, which is a form contract provided by the conference that binds players to these schools. Wisconsin wants the court to admit, hey, this is a legit contract.
I was going to say, this would essentially legitimize that deal, no?
Right, and that's what they want.
If they were to win it.
And that's what they want, because we've talked about before when we talked about this case, there's no damages. Like Miami, first of all, you cannot get Xavier Lucas from Miami to Wisconsin.
There's one damage. There's one damage. Wisconsin's defensive backfield.
Right, which they can't say because they can't say it's pay for play. Because in all the big suits, this is what I've always said about this case, is when you look at the damages aren't there.
The real damages are ones that are illegal.
Right, the real damages, if you admit, hey, what we were hurt because Xavier Lucas was going to play corner for us and be our best player, and he's gone. You can't say that, because in the bigger lawsuits, right, the big antitrust lawsuits where lawyers are making millions and millions of dollars and that are shaping the future of the sport, you're saying it's not pay for play. So you're walking a fine line in this smaller lawsuit to make arguments that cut against you in the big lawsuit. That's, to me, the fundamental issue with this case, and has been since the beginning. But anyway, so in this case, no damages. Like, what are they going to say? We lost the value of Xavier Lucas's charming personality in commercials. That's not, there's no damages there money-wise. And you can't get specific performance, personal services, meaning you can't say, hey, court, make Xavier Lucas line up in the defensive backfield for us and leave Miami. You can't do that. That's too close to like modern day slavery. You cannot do that. That's like basic 101. So there's no real relief other than the court blessing the contract. So what Miami is saying is, look, Wisconsin's trying to get the court to just bless this whole model of Big Ten football. And it's not about this case and Wisconsin's legal rights in this case. They're just asking the court for an advisory opinion, basically. Hey, court, tell us that this is legit broadly. We're not really harmed by this. This is not something that's going to impact us, but we just want you to do this because we think it's good for you. That's not what these courts, they're taxpayer funded, right? You're paying for judges, you're paying for clerks, you're paying for everything. So to waste time and waste taxpayer money trying to figure out things that aren't really a part of a dispute, but that are just answers that Wisconsin would love to have going forward, or the Big Ten would love to have going forward, you can't do that. So that's the last part of this argument, is that this is a BS declaratory judgment claim. And you would love the court to tell you what this contract means for the sake of Big Ten football, but that's not a proper use of judicial resources to settle disputes. So lawyers in the chat, if I missed anything or if I said anything incorrect, let me know. But that's how I'm reading this introduction to this motion to dismiss, with all the disclaimers that I haven't read the motion in full. I haven't seen the case law, but just kind of big picture, I think that's what we're talking about here. Is it going to succeed? Wisconsin's going to respond. I'm not an expert on Wisconsin civil procedure, but maybe Miami will get a reply to that opposition. They'll set it for hearing. Usually something like this, you're going to have to set it for like a longer hearing, right? You don't just want to, like, sometimes you have these 5-minute hearings that it's like a cattle call. There's a ton of lawyers in different levels of expensive suits in a room, and you're kind of running through these things. Whereas in something like this, you're going to have to reserve a lot of time. In Miami, in state court, that always takes a lot of time in advance. Like, you have to book, sometimes months, almost a year in advance. Sometimes it feels like the calendars book up. I don't know how it is in Wisconsin, but the point is this part of it, which is an early knockout blow, takes a long time to get resolved because Wisconsin's got to respond. You got to set the hearing. You got to have the hearing. Then the court's got to make their opinion. So it takes a long time is the bottom line on that. So we'll see. But I think this was not surprising that they went this route. And I usually, I would say, when you write something like this, you usually put the arguments in order of what you think is more likely to succeed. That's just our rule of thumb. So when I see this, I read this as Miami thinks their personal jurisdiction arguments are the most likely to succeed at this stage. And then the actual, hey, their claims failed to state a cause of action because there's no contract, all that stuff, advisory opinion, and it has lower down on what they believe is the stronger argument. So that's how I read it. But big picture, Xavier Lucas, when Miami goes to scrimmage tomorrow, he'll be playing corner. He'll be 6'1". He'll be 200 pounds. He'll be 4'3", and he'll be playing for the University of Miami. And this is really about things I think that are bigger than Miami and Wisconsin at the end of the day. But Miami is going to fight hard, and I think they have a pretty good hand. So we'll see how this one goes.
Great stuff, D. I wanted to get into the comment that you made about Mario and Fickle being a close fight. I got Mario easy there.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, if it was Mario and Manny, it'd be like that's like a jobber. But I mean, in terms of Mario and Fickle, at least that's a good opponent. But 904 saying Mario knows judo, mixed martial arts, actually competed in jiu-jitsu tournaments. Fickle wouldn't stand a chance. No, listen, I'm betting Mario every time. I'm betting Mario every time. But look, at the end of the day, Xavier Lucas is going to play for Miami here. Wisconsin's got a lot of problems. That program has fallen on very hard times. There's a proud program that's been good for a long time. They kind of suck now. I don't see them getting out of that, and I'd be frustrated if I was Wisconsin too. You lost a great player, but tough luck. Good luck finding a guy that's 6'1", 200 pounds, runs a 4.3 in Wisconsin. So we'll see how this
found him. They found him before. They just couldn't keep him.
That's right. They did find one. Well, not in Wisconsin. They found one down here, and I think down here.
Yes.
They're poison in the well down in South Florida. I mean, I can't imagine what a coach sending your kid to Wisconsin when you have to deal with all this kind of stuff. I wouldn't. I mean, this is to me.
It certainly hurts the South Florida connection, which they've gotten kids in the past from down here. So,
yeah. So, we'll see how this one goes. But knowing how long this stuff takes, it'll take a while. Wisconsin State Court, again, I'm not an expert in it. My knowledge of Wisconsin State Court, at least in the criminal context, is from that Making a Murderer show, and it looked like a complete clown show. So, we'll see how it goes.
So you want to talk some football?
Let's do it, Pete. So comment here to get you started from Josh Gross, and he says, Pete, the work is awesome. If you ain't in the Discord, go get in it. I know that's available on your Twitter account. You got the link on there. A lot of people ask us for the link. Just look at Peter Rees on Twitter. He's got it in there.
I'll drop it in the comments too.
Yeah, this is your thing. This is your thing because everybody always asks. This is a Peter Rees production right there. I am a paying customer, but it is a Pete deal and really good stuff in there. So Pete, I know you've been working hard, getting some information. What are you hearing here on the team and just little tidbits?
Yeah, so I made a new post this morning, and again, guys, I'm sharing a lot of the stuff still on the show. I think it's helping this, getting the information even better for this show. But of course, you're gonna get it first there, and I'm actually gonna drop something else that I kept kind of in the bank, so to speak. Not the bank, you're the bank, but in my memory bank that I'll drop later today as well. But wanted to get into a few things, D, and to me, it's very interesting stuff. It's some stuff that I've talked about earlier this week on some of my posts, but getting some more, doing some more digging, getting some more intel into it. And I want to start with S.J. Alafatuli, D, because he's someone that, as the number one center in the country coming in, a lot of high hopes for, obviously, but he had never snapped. And I think both you and I had heard that was a process for him. That was a transition. Learning to snap the football wasn't easy for him in the spring. Just being frank with it. But from what I understand, utilizing a new glove, as crazy as that sounds, that's helping him, develop there. Something that I actually forgot to put in the post that I'll talk about later. But a couple weeks ago, when the team was off before camp, I saw him in the student rec by himself grinding when a lot of the guys were back home. Obviously he's from far away, so he's not going home for some of these trips. And he was in there by himself in the student rec center in the middle of the summer. He's put on a lot of good weight, but again, as he continues to get the snapping aspect of it down, I think that's when he's going to take the next step. Potentially a redshirt candidate, quite frankly, this year, D. I think it's a battle between him and Nino Francavilla. for that, I guess, number 3 center spot, because Ryan Rodriguez, I would say, is the backup center right now.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to the family. I know they listened to the show. I saw him at practice the other day. With SJ. By the way, great stuff. That glove thing that's the Reese tidbit right there. I think when you look at him in high school, he's always been a center prospect because of his size, because of athleticism, because of his flexibility. He just was a prototypical center in a lot of ways. But, and there's a Josh Gross asking, how was he number 1 center in high school? He didn't snap. He played guard in high school.
Freak.
He was a dominant guard in high school because he was so strong, so quick, so good. They had another center. Now SJ is a better center prospect than the center they had, but I think the guy that they had at center was not as good at guard as SJ was at guard. So to have the best overall team, they had SJ at guard and this guy at center. And I forgot where he signed. He signed somewhere. I'll have to look it up. He was a good player, a D1 player, but SJ was a better guard than this guy was a guard. So SJ then played guard, even though his future in college was most likely at center. So he wasn't snapping. And then he goes to Miami. He's obviously, I don't say undersized, because undersized suggests he's not going to get to where he used to be, but he came in light because a lot of these super athletic centers come in light. I think back to Parker Brailsford. There's a comparison I always use, who was at Washington, then followed DeBoer to Alabama. Now he's probably the best center in the country. He was like 260 when he got to Washington, redshirted, then as a redshirt freshman, started on that team, then went to the championship. Then he went to Alabama, and he became what is now possibly the best center in the country. So these light guys, sometimes they need to gain weight, period. Add in the fact that he's not snapping in high school. Now he has to learn how to snap. Add into the fact that he's not always a snap, but he has to learn how to snap confidently enough to be explosive and be able to deal with these much bigger players. Because it's not just snapping it and getting it to the quarterback. It's about snapping it and still getting the force and the explosion necessary to get your blocks while snapping. So if you're worried about snapping because you're learning snapping at the highest levels, you're not going to have the same explosiveness or just power out the gate because you're thinking, right? When anyone does anything athletic, when you're thinking, you're not as powerful and athletic as you normally are. So put it all together, and I think spring was a learning experience. Now you're seeing, like Pete reported, steps here in fall and August camp. And I think when this guy gets weight on him, when he gets really comfortable snapping to where it's second nature, he's going to be everything you hoped he would be. He's extremely athletic. He's flexible as can be. He's a weight room monster. He works hard. I heard he's a great kid. So add it all up, and I think you have your center of the future, but it's not like Brandon Linder, who played center a little bit in high school and was 300-something pounds and was able to play all over as a freshman, true freshman. I think this is more.
It's a position of polish. You got to be very polished to play that spot, and he has a lot more tools than a lot of guys who play that position. But man, give it a year, and I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be very, very, very good.
Yeah, I'm a fan, big fan, and yeah, man, any more Polynesian players, the better, man. I mean, we can't get enough. These guys they're so hardworking, they're so talented, and they really make your program much, much better. So, Pete, what's next on the docket?
So the next thing that I wanted to bring up, we're talking a lot about Dalen Russell, and I think he's made a move, D. But yeah, it's funny because yesterday, as soon as we started talking about Dalen Russell, we got questions about Dante Simpson. Hey, does this mean he's fallen off a little bit? And no, look, that's not necessarily the case. I spoke to someone who probably would still consider Simpson ahead of Russell in the pecking order there. We're not, I'm not calling it a depth chart because there's no depth chart right just yet, but I think it's still trending in that direction. But again, I keep saying this, D, and I think you agree with me as well. We keep talking about DT number 4. When you look at the end of the year, who's going to have the most snaps in terms of like, all right, this is DT1, this is DT2. Who's taking the most snaps? DT4 and 5 is probably going to be some combination of Ruben Bain, Hayden Lowe, Armando Blunt, which was emphasized to me that he's going to be playing inside a lot on these pass rushing situations. I've seen did I just say Hayden Lowe? Hayden Lowe, I've seen him slide inside on pass rushing situations. So you have a bunch of options there that ideally you're going to be getting teams in some third and longs and letting those guys tee off. But Dalen Russell's made progress. I still think that Simpson is doing enough to earn some reps this year, though. And by the way, shout out to Q Sports Media, by the way. Been seeing him out there. He's been out there at practice. He does a great job with a lot of the stuff in terms of miking up a lot of these high school guys. Has had some great Josh Moore content. So guys, go follow Q Sports Media.
Yeah, shout out to Q Sports Media. Absolutely great content.
Josh Gross asked me this in the Discord, and I'm going to see if we can get him an answer for this. He's looking for more Sean Taylor jerseys and medium on Miami HTS. So if we can help Josh out there with that one.
I will ask. Those things are hot. We'll do the team store spot here after you're done with the work. But yeah, man, those Sean Taylor throwbacks, those are going fast. And the Ed Reed. I know my son wanted the Ed Reed. But yeah, the Sean Taylors. How ridiculous was that team? Man, we're talking about safety, and we had Sean Taylor backing up. Gosh, imagine that guy on this team as a true freshman. He'd be best player in the country.
So go ahead. If you I don't know if you had something to add to what I just said.
Just on DT, obviously don't want injuries, but yeah, I agree with what you're seeing. I think a guy like a Blunt, Lowe, Messidor, Bain, all those guys you could see. But I think the top three guys, Moten, Blay, Scott, they looked the part. And it was very interesting, P. I just want to add this while you're talking about this. So cover three. So those who don't know, there was a symposium or some kind of like convention for like personnel guys, right? So like,
yeah, it was a recruiting. They were there in Nashville this week. It was a recruiting and player personnel symposium.
Our guys were out there. Basically everybody in that business that didn't have to be in their hometown with the team, they were out there just like, a convention, like a coach's convention, like, conferences you guys might have for work. And there were those media out there. Cover 3 was out there. Bud Elliott on Cover 3, which is a CBS Sports podcast. I like it. I listened to it a bunch. And he said that he was asking everybody about which is someone that you did not get that you wish you got, to the other personnel guys. And he's talking about high-level D1 teams, right? Not like, Mac. Hey, who did you wish you get in the portal? It's more like the Power 4 playoff contender teams with budgets. This is how he described it. Asking them who was a player that someone else got that you were like, man, I wish we got that player. Offense, everybody said Eric Singleton. I would agree. I think Eric Singleton is going to be a top 10 pick type, maybe top 20 pick. I think he's elite. I think he's probably, with Jeremiah Smith not eligible and Ryan Williams not eligible, Malachi Tony not eligible, I would say that Eric Singleton's going to be the best receiver in the country as far as draft eligible guys. If I'm missing someone, let me know, but I think he's better than Carnell Tate. I don't know who else is eligible, but I think Eric Singleton will end up, what is it, August 9th? That's my prediction there, that Eric Singleton will be the highest drafted wide receiver in the draft. So obviously he got a lot of answers. Then Bud Elliott basically was saying that Miami landed a defensive player that the majority of the defensive people said would like that. That's who they wanted, right? I could have sworn that the answer was going to be Xavier Lucas. That'd probably be my answer based on what I've seen from Xavier Lucas. I think he's right there with Eric Singleton, size, speed, freak that can play. He said that the name that came up the most, this is again, other personnel departments, playoff contending teams with big budgets, and including everybody, like everybody, the guys that went to Texas Tech, the guys that went to LSU, Patrick Payton, whatever. He said the most common name he heard, you know what it was? David Blay. David Blay was the name that he heard the most from other teams' personnel departments. And I know you've talked about this in the past, but those who haven't heard it, you have Scouting Connects. You talk about that in the work. You talk about that here. You talk about that in the Discord. What are some of the things you've heard about David Blay from the scouting community?
I mean, right now he's probably like a top 4 round projection. But the tape against the good teams that he played last year stood out. When you're coming from a smaller school, and yeah, Louisiana Tech's not FCS football, but you aren't playing the big boys week in, week out. The scouts are going to take, especially a guy like him who was an all-conference player, right? They're going to the height and weight, the physicals are important, but they're looking at your tape against, for him, it was Arkansas and NC State, right?
Yep.
I believe.
Yep.
And he had really good tape in those two, right? So I'm thinking if he has the sort of season he can have, he can move himself up the board here and solidify himself as like a top 100 sort of pick. But he's got to produce. And look, with him, I don't necessarily think the size is like grade A. He's 6'3", 6'4", 305 pounds, but disruptive, right? And strong, right? I think that was the biggest thing that from that Arkansas tape they saw was like he had legitimate play strength, which in the interior is sometimes you can't really, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be blowing up every single play, but he's moving those offensive linemen.
Yeah, it's strength, and then just the way he uses his body is what I've heard. Some guys are just first step monsters. Ahmad Moten, I would say, fits in this category. He beats guys off the first step. He has the most explosive first step, I believe, out of all three of those guys, based on what I've
Which is crazy because I would have thought Scott.
And he's up there too. Moten's first step is crazy. But I think with Belay, it's not the pure size, although he's got size. It's not the pure first step, although he has twitch. It's when he gets on guys. You mentioned the play strength, that's part of it. And then also just some guys can just kind of like wiggle around. It's hard to describe. Those, if you know what I'm talking, if you know, it's just like that ability to use your body. Maybe it's for defensive ends, you talk about bend. For defensive tackles, it's just kind of like your leverage, just your ability to work your way into your spots. He has that. They said once contact is made, the best guy is Blay, as far as just kind of getting where he needs to go. So that's a good look. You have Justin Scott, obviously the biggest one, the most athletic one. Ahmad Moten, the first step, most disruptive. So, you have different looks in that room. And then the fourth DT, a lot of guys in the mix, like you said. But I think those three are going to be, if they stay healthy, which you pray, that's a position you do not want injuries anywhere in the country. Nobody in the country is. No one wants injuries anywhere, but everybody's praying that their top three defensive tackles stay healthy, because in 2025, nobody has a good fourth DT. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe a promising fourth DT, but no one has a fourth DT that they're confident in. That's just not Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. I don't care who you are. Georgia just picked up Josh Horton, right? Nobody has a fourth DT they feel good about, because those guys go in the portal. And that's why when you talk to those recruiting guys, that's why they said David Blay's name, because it's not just his talent, it's his position too. So I think everybody's praying they stay healthy with their top three, but we got guys coming up. So Pete, back to the work.
So next one here, and look, this may not be groundbreaking news, but a lot of what I want to do on the work is kind of add context to stuff that's already out there. So earlier this week, we heard Owen Ruskovich, tight end, who, we've both been pretty impressed with since spring as someone who can play a role for this team, right? And I was talking to someone last night who, like I said, Ruskovich was put on scholarship. So former walk-on, now a scholarship player. And Cody Woodle actually singled him out as the hardest worker in that tight end room. And what I found interesting is what I heard is that last year, Ruskovich on his own was getting extra work in as a tackle because he thought that it could help him, get on the field. And I asked this person, well, was there any pathway to him seeing the field? And he said, nope. Not a chance, not a chance in heck that he would have seen the field at tackle, but that gives you an idea of where this guy's head's at, just trying to help the team in any way possible. And also gives you the idea of the sort of player he is, right? In terms of the physical nature of the game and what he likes to do. I think the other day, D, you said he was 6'5". He's listed as 6'7", and I would say he's taller than 6'5". I don't know that he's 6'7", but he's definitely like 6'6", and he's listed at 255 also. So legit size there. And it's one thing to have the size, but he knows how to use it and he knows how to play with it. So I thought that was an interesting tidbit, man. It shows you some of the behind the scenes stuff with some of these guys that we don't talk about all that much, but the depth, it highlights some of the depth that this roster has in certain spots.
No question about it. We were the first, I believe, on the bank. We talked about Big Russ back in February, right? And your sources were telling you the same thing at that time. So it's like, you listen to the show, you're going to be plugged into what's happening here with Big Russ, and Pete is doing that extra digging. Yeah, but we got some. I gotta feel like our info gathering right now is on another level now. We got Pete up and fully engaged in work mode, man. We got 2017 Pete on the hunt right now. So what did your prime was,
thing.
by the way? What was your prime when you were really like not sleeping and recruiting? You didn't have your girlfriend at the time?
Probably. No, I did. I did have my girlfriend at the time. It had
Oh, really?
nothing to
When
do
did you guys
with
get together?
I've been with my girlfriend since how long? Forever, she says. It's
like shout out to the real
almost
star.
10 years.
Shout out to the real star of the relationship. All right.
So it wasn't that holding me back. It was definitely not that. Yeah, I would say 2017, 2018, the Storm 18 class was great.
Storm 18. Yeah, man, I wish that turned out better. It was reported great. I wish the class turned out great. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out too hot. But anyways, man, yeah. So
I do have some recruiting news. I have a couple recruiting tidbits here.
Armando says Pete blushing.
I'm blushing. They're saying.
But anyways, but Big Russ, man. Just to your point, we mentioned in the spring. Again, this show is the first people talking about Big Russ. This is a real player. This is not a, hey, congrats on here's your scholarship just for being a good guy. This is a guy that's going to help the team, and he fits right in with this tight end group, which is big, physical. They can catch. They got really just tough mentalities, man. I say lunch pail, and that includes Elijah Lofton. These are lunch pail guys, but they also have their own physical talents as well. Ruskovich can catch. He has pretty good hands. He's not just a stiff. I would say if you compare him to McCormick, who really helped us win games, I mean, his hands, I think, are actually better than McCormick. I think he's a better receiver than McCormick. And McCormick helped us win games and have the number one offense.
So, couple recruiting. Well, actually, let me get to this question from Kyle real quick. He says, question about Cole McConaughey. Do you guys think he has the frame to gain weight, maybe 285, 290 to play DT? That's a tough one. He's a big boy. I mean, he's listed at 250, but he looks bigger than that to me, D. I think he's more of a linear athlete from what I've seen. And I think he can win like that, but he's one of those body types that I would be careful trying to throw an extra 35, 40 pounds on.
Yeah. I don't think that's the plan with McConaughey. I think there's a place for big defensive ends too. There's nothing wrong with being a 260, 270 pound defensive end, right? There's a value in that, especially if you can still rush the passer. So I think that might be more where he ends up, but he's 19 years old, probably. I mean, second year in college, coming off an injury. So who knows where his body goes. But I don't think that's a situation where they're like rushing to put weight on him or he's rushing to put weight on himself. I agree with you, Pete, on McConaughey, but we'll see. I think he's going to play this year. The reason McConaughey's the guy that got a lot of buzz last year. He played on the defense. He was one of the few guys that played snaps on the defense as a true freshman. But then he got hurt in spring, and you didn't hear from him. And it kind of felt Hayden Lowe was the flavor of the month, which he deserved it because he's a stud. But you didn't hear as much about McConaughey. Now he's healthy, so he's going to be in the mix. And he's going to. I'm excited to watch him in the scrimmage on Saturday. Or on Sunday. I'm sorry, tomorrow. I think he's going to be excited to get out there.
So recruiting wise, a couple things here, D. We've gotten a lot of questions since Brett Koloje went to USC, about the plans at O-line. And I'm under the impression that they're not in any sort of rush to add a seventh offensive lineman. They were pretty steadfast for a while that Koloje was the only one that they wanted to add. And I don't get the sense that there's anyone on the radar right now. And as you know, these senior evaluations do happen, but I think they're very happy with what they have right now. And with Koloje, just looking at that situation real quick, I tried to kind of get some insight into what happened there. And we said for a while, the week after his Miami visit, the longer that thing went out, the less likely it was going to be for Miami to get him. Miami was not aware that he'd be taking that Tennessee visit. And then really from what I understand, again, this is stuff that I didn't know at the time. Him and Mark Bowman, USC commit, are best friends. They're attached at the hip, which I had no idea that there was that sort of connection there. USC, as stupid as this stuff sounds in recruiting, but USC had them come in on a midweek visit, the only midweek visits they've done all cycle, really hammered home that package deal point. And that was from what Miami thinks, because, we talk about a lot. Oh, well, did this school just throw a bag at him? This wasn't something that Miami thought they lost because of money, right? There's just certain things that recruiting comes down to, and relationships is one of them. Bowman being again, from what's being described to me, that's his best friend. That was a tough one to overcome.
Yeah, man, it's a shame because I love this guy, as did you, and I interviewed him right after I was there for his interview. I don't think I personally interviewed him, but I was there when he interviewed with Sebastian and everybody in his visit, and he sounded like he was about to come to Miami.
That was the hope that he would pop that next week. They knew he'd be visiting Georgia, but they thought that he'd be committing to them most likely after the Georgia. And then the Tennessee surprise visit came in, and that's when I think the wheels kind of fell off for that recruitment. I will say this. I expect Miami to stay in contact with him. Kenya Pepe, I don't know so much about that one. I've speculated on that one in the past. I think that one's going to be tougher, and I don't know if Miami is currently in communication with him. But Kaloje, I don't see them completely folding on that one.
And look, USC, I don't think is going to be very good this year. This is my personal opinion. I could be dead wrong, but I think their football team, the team that lines up on Saturdays, is going to be pretty bad. Mayava's talented. He's kind of up and down. They lost their best running back to Texas Tech. They lost a couple receivers between Deuce going to FSU, Zachariah Branch going to Georgia. They still have two good ones, but I don't think that their receiving corps is as deep as it was last year. Their offensive line stinks. They lost their best offensive lineman, I want to say, to Auburn, I believe. They lost an offensive lineman, their best one, and their offensive line was terrible last year. So I don't think their offense is going to be much better. I think it'll probably be worse. And then defensively, they've been, at dead average for a while. I know they've added a couple guys in the portal, but I'm not too confident in what USC is. They lost Pregnon, their star guard, to Oregon, a rival. So, and then defensively, who did they really add in the portal that you're too excited about at USC? I know they added Keyshawn Stencil from
I like the running back they got from JUCO, Wayman Jordan.
Wayman's, yeah, he's good. Everybody loves Wayman, one of your better clickbait YouTube headlines. But the guy that lost to Texas Tech is a stud. The guy that was originally from Texas. I got fast.
I'm forgetting his name. Yeah,
Quentin Joyner, I believe. He's fast. Yeah. So I don't think, and they were not good last year.
I got Texas Tech in the playoffs this year.
Oh, I know. We're all about the Matador Club, but they're going to be, like, in my opinion, worse than last year or the same. And yeah, you have 30 plus kids committed in high school and you're paying them a fortune. And some of those kids might be bound by the contract, depending what state they're from. Not all. Kaloje's in Florida. He's not bound by anything. You go 6-6 and trend down, and Lincoln Riley's getting heat and all this stuff. And those high school guys, how much can they? It's not like they're going to come in and save you. They're going to take a second to develop. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with USC. I think there's a chance that one could be something that, and like Kyle says, they have an easier schedule that'll help them. I think I could see it where they win their first 4 or 5 games and they got some hype, but when it goes down, it'll go down fast. They're missing a lot on their call it their big league team, like it's baseball, but on their college football team, they have problems. So that's yes, they have help on the way from a high school standpoint, but it's not, imminent. And even when to get there, they got to develop. So USC, I don't think is like, hey, they're going to keep all these guys, is what I'm trying to say. We'll see how it goes.
And then the last recruiting tidbit here. This is one of my favorite parts of the work today, D. I'm going to pull up this video here. Jackson Cantwell, and again, this is something that's out there, right? So this isn't like I'm telling you guys something that you maybe haven't seen before. But essentially, what this is here is Jackson Cantwell working out with Felix Ojo, one of the top tackles in the country, and this is Duke Manyweather. Who is Duke Manyweather? Duke Manyweather is one of the top offensive line trainers in the country. Every year he runs a symposium for linemen called O-Line Masterminds, and that's an invite-only event where most of the top NFL offensive linemen, college offensive linemen are invited to basically, they share ideas. A lot of the NFL vets or guys who are retired are there kind of working in different groups, working on different things. And Cantwell was invited to the event, the O-Line Masterminds event, which takes place in Frisco, Texas, back in early July. So it was like July 10th, 11th. So not only did he get the invite there, but as you see,
by the way, our other guys went too.
Yeah, I know. Was Francis there? Was
I think
Markel
our
Bell
starting
there?
offensive
Yeah,
line was
I
there.
think pretty much the whole O line was there too as well, right? So again, this is invite only though. This is not like it's not like, oh, I play offensive line in college. Like I want to go to this. Like you have to be invited, and I'm sure Coach Mirabal had something to do with the invite too. I know that there's a relationship there, but what I'll say is this. This is why I find this interesting, right? Duke Manyweather, as an agent, had clients that have trained with him, have done some preparation work with him, have worked out with him, have gone to the O-line masterminds events. But at the same time, my guys have been turned down to work with Duke Manyweather. He's very, very selective with who he works out with. Okay. He's working out with the elite of the elite. You look at the list every year of the guys he pressed for the draft, it's all top 3 round players pretty much. So Cantwell's the number 1 recruit in the country, and obviously he's going to want to work with him. That's obvious. But like this showed me a lot, D, because I know how picky this guy is, having dealt with him. It showed me a lot in terms of what the outlook could be there, man. Very, very good stuff there. And this is the sort of stuff I said it the other day with NIL. It gives these players an opportunity to work with the best of the best right now. And and guys, no, Canes Cat C asking if he turned on Titus Howard. No, Titus has worked with him. EJ says it's not. It's EJ saying, "All right, Pete, this isn't that big a deal. Dude is a trainer." Guys, he does not work with just anybody. Okay, like this is a significant development, and to have been exposed to this twice now, I think it's a big development because he's going to be coming into Miami in January, like way more ready to go than your normal offensive lineman. This is significant. It really is.
Yeah, and I think just the fact that this guy's doing it, right? I mean, if I won't say the exact number, but let's just say a sizable number of NIL coming my way, and I was a rising senior in high school, and it was August 9th, and I knew I was going to about to start two-a-days or whatever they're allowed to do these days, prepare really hard practices in the sun, getting ready for the high school football season. I just finished track season. I just finished recruiting. Man, I would be on the Lake of the Ozarks there in Mississippi, enjoying life, man. You know what I mean? On a boat. And this guy's out here doing extra work. So I think that just tells you kind of what he's about and where his mindset is. He didn't need to do this. This is all extras. I'm sure it's not something that Miami made him do. Clearly he wants to do this kind of thing. So shout out to Jackson Campbell. By the way, almost 1,500 on live right now on this Saturday morning, man. So like and subscribe to the show. Check out Pete's Discord right there on Twitter. He is it's awesome, man. Like I said, I am a member. Anything else, Pete, you want to drop us with?
No, that's it. EJ continuing to say it's not a big deal. He said Duke's not turning down a 7-year-old 6'9" tackle. That looks good for him. He's working with 2 tackles in the country right now in high school, it looks like. So Miami got 1 of them.
With the other one, 5 stars going to Texas Tech for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
By the way, they look kind of skinny. Jackson Campbell definitely looks bigger than Ojo in those videos.
Yeah, but pumped up, man, for him. I just think he's going to come in. He's going to come in very ready, and from what I understand, has a pretty good grasp of Miami's offensive scheme already too. So,
absolutely, I'll tell you what Felix Ojo can do more of. If he could use more of, I should say. How about some Cuban food, right? How about the best Cuban food on the planet? You're trying to bulk up, get ready for the season. Islas Canarias Cuban Express, number 1 Cuban restaurant on the planet, 40 plus years and running as the top dog in the city, in the country, and consider the food that's coming out of Cuba with their terrible ingredients and terrible government, the best Cuban food on the planet. That is Islas Canarias, established 1977, 7 different types of croquetas, all kinds of sandwiches, including the classic Cuban sandwich, medianoche, you name it, pan con bistec, pan con lechon, which is pig. They got everything: steak, pig, chicken. You want it, they got it. Beef, empanadas, all those, the sweet pastries, the coffees, the juices, anything that is authentic Cuban, they got it. Plus, right? It's Cuban plus because they got everything. They got tequeños, they got Korean flavors, they got vegan options. If you want the very traditional, you got that. If you want to branch out, they got that too. Never a dull moment with Islas Canarias Cuban Express, number 1 Cuban restaurant on planet Earth. And man, I'm getting hungry. I might do that to maybe tomorrow after the scrimmage. I might head out to Islas Canarias. I know we got a lot of people in the chat. I feel like every single day we hear people in the chat talking about going to Islas Canarias. Coach Checo mentioning Jared Saltalamacchia. Salty. We talked about this yesterday, Coach. I think it's a big time hire, and I like the two tidbits I said is the coach that Saltalamacchia, he coached Griffin Hugas in the Cape last year. Hugas spoke very highly about Saltalamacchia, leading to his huge jump in production from last season in Cincinnati to the Cape. He credits Salty with a lot of that. Also, Saltalamacchia this summer coach TJ Coates, the right-hander from Nebraska, who I think is going to start for us. Based on the timeline of when Saltalamacchia started talking to Miami and then when Coates committed, I bet he probably sent Coates to Miami. So there's a guy that he likes the talent and told JD, hey, this is the guy you want. So that's a good kind of thing to keep in mind when you look at Coates and his potential. Guy Armando, Islas on Sunday morning, August 31st is going to hit. That's absolutely right. Although you don't got to wait for that. You can go right. You can go this Sunday morning or this Saturday morning, but absolutely before the game. Coach Sheckles, and I grew up with him out there in Palm Beach. Coach, give us some tidbits in the chat on Saltalamacchia. I remember when he was a player for the Marlins. That was later in his career. But, yeah, give us some tidbits in the chat. I'm curious about that. Pete, I want to get to a couple things here. First of all, as always, got to talk about the recruiting class. We just talked about Jackson Cantwell. One thing that I heard from Kyle here in the chat, and I wanted to highlight, Jontavius Wyman, not the commit we talk about the most for being a 4-star player. He is named to the Super 11 in the city of Atlanta. What does that mean? That is a pretty exclusive list. Here's Kyle talking about it, and I've heard this goes back a while. I've heard this Atlanta Journal-Constitution list. It says the Super 11, a very prestigious award given to 11 high school football players in the state of Georgia. I thought it was just the Atlanta Metro. I didn't know the whole state of Georgia before his senior year. And as you know, Georgia is loaded. Kyle says, I'm from Georgia. That's always a preseason nomination people from across the state pay attention to. Atlanta alone is loaded. You've seen how we probably offered 11 DBs in Atlanta alone. So think about the whole state of Georgia, every position. For this guy to be top 11 says a lot. 4-star commit we flipped from Georgia. Really athletic corner. Probably one of the most athletic corners we signed in a while as far as playing offense, playing defense, taking picks to the house, returning kicks, all that kind of stuff. You get that from Jontavius Wyman. So shout out to him. Guy we don't talk about a lot in this corner class. Talk a lot about Jalen Waters from Sefner Armwood, who I love with his length and size and just killer mentality. Brody Jennings, tough-minded, athletic man-to-man corner out of Jacksonville. But don't sleep on Jontavius Wyman. His teammate, also Cordis Redding, is committed, and Miami is continuing to recruit in the state of Georgia. Birdstone saying, Georgia, stand up. EJ saying a lot of coaches up in Georgia now from Florida. Yeah, Georgia pays more for their coaches, so Georgia is producing more players and getting better production. So, shout out to the state of Georgia.
Question here from Raymond. Appreciate your support as always. And guys, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. So Raymond's asking, can you discuss Matthew McCoy versus Rodriguez a little bit and his pancake coming around? Yeah, that's a good battle. I think McCoy, just with the physical ability, probably edges Rodriguez out there. Rodriguez will play though. And as I mentioned, he's like, if not for the injury stuff with Rodriguez, I don't know that they would have brought in another center this year. Like they really like Rodriguez at center, and he could start right now for this team at center. I think that the injury history has them understanding, look, we got to have some depth here. And Brockermeyer is an awesome center, but that's just kind of highlighting what they internally believe about Rodriguez in terms of pancake. Continuing to hear that he's looking better, man. That he's going to be in the mix, potentially as a swing tackle this year. And he's going to see play time, and then they really believe that next year could be a big one for him.
Yeah, appreciate you, Raymond, as always, man. You're the man. And on pancake, he's playing left guard too, so he's not just playing tackle.
Which we saw last year, right? Last year during practice, we saw a lot of too.
Yeah, so I think when you talk about McCoy, Rodriguez, Sampson, all those guys are kind of in that mix as far as guys who will play at some point this season. So you have 8 guys I think you feel really good about on the offensive line, which is where you want to be. I mean, you got 10, I think, that are capable of playing, or you will by the end of camp. You have 8 that you feel are probably starter level, if you're being honest, and that's a good place to be when your starters are high level. So I think, we're pretty jacked about that. Here's Josh Gross saying, what are we expecting to see in the scrimmage? Full contact? I believe so. I think they're tackling to the ground. I'm not positive on that. Usually it's like a mix. Maybe like the first half will be tackling to the ground. The second half will be more of just like the team practices you see with full pads where it's more thud. But I don't know. We'll find out. Though part of this is – go ahead, Pete.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say that today is a walkthrough. So
today's not. That's why I'm not there.
Don't expect, don't expect anything from today. And they're trying to make it feel like a game day, really. Walk through before tomorrow. So,
yep. A lot of questions actually. So Juan Manuel and Nashville Kane are asking the same question about the quarterback battle at Notre Dame. And thoughts on that. I mean, Kenny Minchie, who's a little older, guy from Tennessee, the high school recruit from Tennessee. CJ Carr, grandson of Lloyd Carr from the state of Michigan, where his grandfather was a legendary coach. It was always the expectation when CJ Carr would run away with this. Kenny Minchie's making this a real competition. I think the more competition you have, the better, because that means they're splitting.
You got two QBs, you don't have one.
You don't have one. And look, maybe by the end of the season you have one, but your first game you're playing against Miami in a very loud, hostile Hard Rock Stadium, which was the hardest, most loud environment you played in a few years ago. And there's Notre Dame who plays everybody. The players said that was the loudest environment they ever played in. And Herb Street said something similar about just listening to it in the booth. So not where you want to be for a first-year quarterback, period. These guys have not thrown. I think Minchie threw 3 passes in garbage time. CJ Carr has thrown 0. So basically 0 experience, very loud. And you're not getting all the first-team reps. Like when we played Bryce Young, it was his first start, but he had played in garbage time a bunch. He had gotten all the first-team reps. There was no quarterback controversy with Bryce Young, and it was not an away game. He was playing in the Atlanta, right? So it wasn't even an away game. This is a whole different deal than some of the other first-time quarterbacks that we faced. So and that was Bryce Young, who's the Heisman Trophy winner. So I think going to be, if you're talking about advantages for Miami, and there's different advantages for different teams. In this case, that's a mismatch, I think, for Miami, or at least an advantage for Miami, that we have an experienced quarterback at home. They have a completely inexperienced quarterback on the road coming off the heels of a quarterback competition, and we'll see who wins it. I don't know at this point.
Yeah, I think we both questioned them letting Angeli walk when they did, because he got snaps in the playoff and led them to scoring drives. So I don't know. I'll take that experience, but obviously they think the upside was higher with Carr. I will say, talking to a Notre Dame buddy who's on the message boards and stuff, a few weeks ago, I was talking to him like right when their camp started, and I was like, oh, CJ Carr's starting. And he's like, listen, I'm hearing that Minchie's going to be in that mix legitimately. And I didn't think anything of it, but it seems like I think he's going to have a role. I don't know if he starts that game, but I think his mobility, they throw that in there as a wrinkle.
Yeah, and you mentioned message boards. Message boards, heartbeat of college football for every program. If you're not signed up to CanesInsight.com, 7.5 million plus post and counting. Do it for free before the season. There's people signing up every single day. I think the podcast has drove a lot of people to the website that weren't on there already. We're almost at 20,000. I want to get to 20,000 registered members. Tens of thousands more people that just lurk and don't post, but sign up today, man. These discussions are crazy. As you can see, the activity, every thread is getting bumped. If something happens, you will hear about it immediately on Canes Insight, because it is just so active at all times. Right now, about almost 1,000 Canes fans on there chatting at all times. You can go there at 4 a.m. There's going to be someone in, Zimbabwe or Czechoslovakia on here chatting. I guess they call it Czechia now. I don't know. So anyways, there'll be someone on there talking Canes. So sign up to CanesInsight.com. It's all free. Best message board, best Canes community on the Canes world. Twitter, all this kind of stuff. Facebook, forget about it. CanesInsight.com. Sign up today. So we had a question here. There's a good one from Trevante Knotts. Do you think we rely more on transfers or recruits this coming season? It's going to be a mix, right? So the two guys touching the ball in every play are going to be James Brockermeyer, who's a transfer, Carson Beck, who's a transfer. So obviously, those guys are going to be pretty important to what you're doing. Receiver, you have CJ Daniels coming in. I think he's going to be a focal point. Keelan Marion's a big play guy. Tony Johnson, a glue guy there. You have Bauman, a tight end, I should say. So those guys on offense will help you a lot. David Blay, we talked about earlier. Messidor, technically a transfer, although he's been here for 3 years. I think at this point, he's kind of a homegrown guy. Mo Torre, a lot of people think he might be the best player on the defense period. I know you've talked to people about Mo Torre. So, and you talked to the people in the Discord on that. So Mo Torre is a guy. The secondary is pretty much all transfers for the most part. So, you have OJ Frederick and Damari Brown, but a lot of transfers in the secondary. So that's a lot of help. Kickers. But then homegrown, you have Marty Brown in the backfield as well. But you have Fletcher, you have Jordan Lyle, you have Malachi Toney, JoJo Trader, the whole offensive line pretty much aside from center. Elijah Loft is going to be a key guy on offense. You have the 5-star defensive lineman, Marquise Lightfoot, Armando Blunt, Hayden Lowe, Justin Scott, Ruben Bain, right? Wesley Saint, that linebacker. Kellen Wiley kind of creeping up the charts there at linebacker. OJ Frederick, who I think is going to have an All-America type year at corner. Damari Brown, someone that really, really has been coming on strong. So it's a mix, man. It's a mix. I think this is just elite talent acquisition. I'll say elite talent acquisition. This is high-level talent acquisition. We'll see if it's elite at the end of the year. But you're really building on, hey, if we need a transfer here, we got a transfer. If we got a homegrown guy here, we got a homegrown guy here. You're trying to get the best players at all times.
No doubt.
And Trevante asks, does that reflect on recruiting relying more on transfers? I think it reflects on having a good budget and being relentless, man. I think in DB, we didn't recruit well enough. That's why we have a lot of transfers at DB. I think at receiver.
And you still got to hit on your transfers at the end of the day. You can bring in all these transfers, but like if they're not the real deal, then you're in the same spot as you were. So I think we talk a lot about, is there too much of a reliance on the portal? Or are you, building out from high school enough? At the end of the day, you still have to make the right evaluations out of the portal. So I think there needs to be some credit given there if what we're seeing now ends up coming to fruition. But even in the past couple of years, like there's been some good evaluations. There's been some bad ones. I would say that's the nature of it. But the early returns are positive. And then again, for me, you have so many guys here that are multi-year eligibility players that it's like, I don't care that they're transfers. You're going to get two years of Xavier Lucas, most likely. You're going to get 3 years of Sharmar Brown, potentially. So, and there's more guys like Zechariah Poyser, Kamal Bonner. So these aren't 1 year rentals, which is a huge, Ethan O'Connor. These are guys who have 2 to 3 years left of eligibility. So it's a different sort of transfer to me.
100%. I think there's different stages. So when Mario first got here, the roster was so bad because of Manny Diaz, and I've slacked a little bit because of all the practices on my reviewing the classes. We're up to the class of 2013. When we get to like 2018, 2019, 2020, the Rick years, the Manny years, you see the roster really collapsed talent-wise. It was already had holes, but I mean, it collapsed with those Rick and Manny classes. They were terrible in retrospect. So much worse than the Golden classes when you break it down. So that led to Mario when he came in, taking a lot of transfers to not just like get real talented players, but to fill spots. And when you're filling spots, that's not where you want to be. You're getting guys that are kind of jags in a lot of respects, but their bodies. The hope is you shifted to a point now in your transfer recruiting where you're getting NFL players in the portal. And if you're getting NFL players in the portal, you're doing good. I don't care about your recruiting. I mean, you're getting NFL players, you're doing good, right? You've added, just off the top of my head, in terms of since Mario has been here, portal-wise, drafted guys, you're talking about, I mean, obviously Cam Ward is the number 1 overall pick from the portal. Damian Martinez was drafted. Tyler Barron was drafted. Mitchell Aguda played in the NFL or plays in the NFL. Jaden Davis was drafted. Matt Lee was drafted. Javion Cohen, you saw starting yesterday for blocking for Shedeur Sanders. So when you get NFL guys in the portal, that's where you want to be. What you don't want is to get a lot of Jags in the portal because you've missed so bad. Kiko Mauanoa, thank you for the chat on that one. So you want those kind of guys. You don't want to be getting guys in the portal to fill holes because your recruiting is so bad, and the guys you get in the portal are just kind of Jags. So there's a they're not all created equal in the portal. All portal players are not the same, I think is the big point on that one.
Yeah, I got to hop off here in a minute, so I don't know if
yeah, well, I'll go through
a
a couple plugs. I mean, you go ahead and drop off. I want to just get to a couple things.
All right, guys, appreciate you all.
Peace. So just wanted to shout out for those who watch the news, watch the NBC nightly news. You may be familiar with their new host, Tom Yamas, who is a Miami guy. I used to sit with this dude at the top of the Orange Bowl, and his brother was one of my best friends in the whole planet. And we used to sit there and watch the probation era Hurricanes from the cheap seats. And now he is the host of the NBC nightly news, replacing Lester Holt. He'll be there for 40 years. So get used to that face. But he came to practice earlier this week, met with Mario, met with all the top players. His son was getting autographs from everybody, all the top players. By the way, Malachi Tony was one of those, if just you're wondering where he stands kind of in the pecking order. And I had a chance to sit down with him and do an interview, which will come out for Miami Hurricanes on the Miami Hurricanes official channel. Anything they don't use, they'll probably put out on CanesInSight. So look forward to that. He did a bunch of stuff there, and he is the man. I mean, this great dude, and of course, super talented. He is the host of NBC Nightly, lead anchor on NBC Nightly News. EJ says, "Hey, that's my comment, man. Appreciate you." And Brandon's just two Belen guys, man, doing our thing. Brandon says D with the drip. Well, if you're talking about drip, you're talking about the Miami Hurricane team store, and there's a very interesting announcement coming up here that I wanted to get to. Let me get this full screen so you could see it properly here. But this is everybody loves autograph stuff. Everybody loves autograph stuff from the Canes. And the Canes they got a new promotion here with 4 autograph items for each of the top 10 football players, or 2, I'm not going to say the official top 10, but 10 of the top players on the Canes, 4 autograph items for each. You can get it at the team store online, MiamiHTS.com, and at the store itself. Carson Beck, Ruben Bain, Francis Malinois, Mark Fletcher, and more. Pull up this here so you guys can see what I'm talking about with the team store. There you go. Helmets, balls, Carson Beck. You see the autograph helmet. You see OJ Frederic there, Ruben Bain. I mean, the top players around. Get those autographed. Get that autograph merch. Get it for your kids. Get it for yourself for the man cave. MiamiHTS.com or in store at the Miami Hurricane team store. I mentioned not this Saturday, not next Saturday, but the Saturday after that, 4 to 5 p.m. Mario Cristobal meet and greet at the Miami Hurricane team store. If your calendar is not set from August 22nd is it August 22nd? Let me pull up the exact date before I get this wrong here. But if your calendar is not set for this meet and greet with Mario Cristobal, what are you doing? It is going to be, Friday, August 22nd, 4 to 5 p.m. at the Miami Hurricane team store. I mean, this is the meet and greet, man. Mario Cristobal, you know how hard he works. So if he's making time for this, it's important. Friday, 4 to 5 p.m., Miami Hurricane team store right across the street from the University of Miami. Nothing more to say. Set your calendars if you're local on there. Anything else in the store, not the autograph stuff, but just like the norm, just the clothes, the stuff that gets you ready for the season. Use promo code INSIGHT20, get 20% off your first item online at Miami HTS or the store. You could just say INSIGHT20. They'll know what you're talking about. Say CanesInSight. They'll get you that 20% discount. So a lot of fun stuff going on here with the Miami Hurricane team store. Shout out to the villains. Mohamed Wells has been hitting the gym. Look at those guns. I gained a little bit of weight, man. I mean, too much. Eating a little too much. I gotta get lean for the season, man. I gotta get in shape. The coaches are all ready to rock. I see them running around. I gotta get back. But yeah, man, be a lot of fun. Drew is asking, when's the scrimmage wrap up? Probably around noon. We'll do a show afterwards. We'll be discreet as always, but we'll let you know what's going on, right? So again, appreciate everybody joining us. Over 1,600 live on this Saturday morning. Like and subscribe to the show. We're on all the time, as you know. If you follow us, you're getting a lot of notifications. We're putting a lot of content. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Go Canes.